So welcome to the Living Well podcast presented by Elim Christian Centre. This week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and we are looking at some topics to bring awareness around the challenges that we face day to day. So today we're talking about sleep. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Liz Griffiths. I'm a pastor here with Elim and a counsellor and a mum. Oversee the Counselling Hub for Elim. I've got Leigh McCabe with me today. Leigh is a clinical occupational therapist with a psychology degree. And we have got Chris Bethwaite, who is the National Administrator for Elim New Zealand and a avid Formula One follower. So really looking forward to having these guys, and we're going to have a conversation about sleep, all things sleep. So settle in. So Leigh, tell us just a little bit as we begin about the work that you do.
Sure. Okay. So I'm an occupational therapist, and I also deliver different psychotherapies. I work with lots of teenagers and lots of young mums with new babies. And I guess I just say that because sleep difficulties turn up in both those stages of life. I see a lot of people present with difficulties with anxiety, depression, and different psychological and mental wellbeing difficulties, and sleep always features in our conversation.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Chris, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Great to be here today talking about this really important topic. I'm National Administrator for Elim New Zealand. We have 35 churches throughout New Zealand, and part of my role is providing support to those churches and to our pastors that lead those churches. My role, often there are things that are keeping me awake at night, and there's a bit of travel involved as well sometimes, domestically and internationally. And so that sometimes can play on your sleep as well. But no, it's a real privilege doing what I do and that. But sleep is something that I have a love-hate relationship with.
Yes, sleep. All right. Okay, so just by way of starting, the Bible says in Psalm 4:8, it says this. It says, "In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." So, God's intent is for us to sleep. It is for us to feel sleep. So what's the deal? Chris, tell us a little bit about your journey with sleep and how that's been for you.
Yeah. So, as I said before, I have a love-hate relationship with sleep, and probably more of a hate relationship with sleep, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, we like honesty.
I've been through seasons in my life where I am anxious to go to bed at night, simply because I know that I will struggle to go to sleep. And so for many, many years, I as far back as I can remember, probably from my early 20s, sleep is not something that's come easily or naturally for me, and can often find myself still wide awake, into the wee small hours. And one of the reasons too that I struggle with that is, as I've discovered over the years, I have a condition called restless leg syndrome, which probably when I was in my 20s was seen as a bit of a weird thing, and probably more of a psychosomatic kind of thing, and it's all in your head. But obviously, as years have gone on and research has gone on, it's actually been diagnosed as a real thing. And for those that don't know what that is, basically when you lie down to rest at night, your brain and rest of your body might be dog tired, but suddenly nerves in your body, like in your legs or your arms, just want to move and twitch. It can feel like you're kind of cramping a little bit. It can feel like you've got bugs crawling over your legs, so you just want to flick them to, and you can imagine being married. So much love and adoration for my dear wife, that can cause all sorts of difficulties and stuff like that, where you're trying to move quietly as not to disturb. I'm not trying to disturb Karen. And then other times, sometimes you just feel like you're just getting so frustrated because you just want to sleep because you're so tired. And I think other times it's probably because of anxiety, perhaps worry, things like that just go on. And so it's been a battle for me, to be honest.
Yeah, so there's just so many factors that affect sleep, hey, and I guess, people have their own sort of experience of that, and for you, Chris, it's It's been the restless legs things. It's been maybe some anxiousness that's turned up, pressures, all that sort of thing. So I guess there's just so many different reasons why sleep can be a challenge for us. And actually it's probably a lot more common than we realise that so many people are, having a challenge with sleep. So Leigh, tell us, why does sleep matter?
I think, like you said, like you led with, Liz, we're meant to sleep, we're meant to rest. I think we're meant to do our days from a rested position. And so if we go into our day not rested, our ability to function and do everything is reduced. And that's particularly if we lose sleep over a period of time. So when we sleep, our brain, one of the important things is that our brain consolidates learning. And so when we sleep in cycles. Shall I dive into that now?
Yeah, let's dive into sleep cycles. Great.
So over the course of a night, we'll go through anything from about 3 to 5 sleep cycles. And in those sleep cycles, we go through different phases of sleep. We go through light or transitional sleep in the first couple of stages, which is when our body temperature is reducing, our heart rate is reducing, our blood pressure is reducing, and actually our brain waves are beginning to slow down. Then we go into a deeper, more restorative sleep. And during that more restorative phase of sleep is when we get the growth hormone is released, and so we do a lot of cell repair, and that's at every age. So every age of life, sleep is important. So even though we think about growth hormone as growing, so yes, adolescents need more sleep because they're in a big growth period of their life, but all of us for cell repair need sleep.
That's why my teenager stays in bed till 12 o'clock, right?
Trying to grow.
Trying to grow. It's not just because they're ignoring the jobs that I've been asking them to do. They stay asleep, but it's actually because they're growing. Yeah.
So do you think there's a correlation between basketball players and sleep?
Well, yeah, maybe.
It consolidates learning. So in the different phases of sleep, different memories, so more superficial memories are consolidated in the first phases. And then when we get into REM sleep, those more emotional memories are consolidated. And we need that to happen so that we can handle the difficult things that happen in life.
Right.
So our learning and our memory are really important things. The other thing is obviously our heart. Our heart needs rest. Every part of our body needs rest. So, yeah.
That's good. So both of those types of sleep.
Yes.
So when we first go to bed at night, we sort of enter into that first phase, but then the longer that we're in bed, that we're sleeping, we then enter the second stage, which is this REM stage. So I have a friend and she only needs about like 3 or 4 hours sleep a night. And it really annoys me because I need like a minimum of 8, I think probably more like 9.
Yes.
So what's the deal on different people seem to need different amounts of sleep? What's your sort of thinking on that? And how much sleep do you have, Chris?
I think that's really interesting, and you're right. We are so there's the Sleep Foundation gives us those averages of what we should be looking for. So for adults, it should be between 7 and 9 hours. Yeah. For older adults, it's still a similar amount, but older adults have lighter sleep and they're more wakeful. Yeah. And I think it's really good to know that during the course of your life, sleep does change. I can't answer.
Okay, so different ages maybe might alter. Like if I was like an 8-hour person, maybe like in later years I might be
You might be slightly less.
A 5-hour.
And so you've got more hours to crochet or play bowls or whatever it is you do. But there's some important things to know about that. So as you get older and you become a little bit more wakeful and have lighter sleep, you will wake more. And so a lot of people kind of go, oh no, I've woken up more and I've had a disrupted sleep, when actually that doesn't necessarily impact on the quality of their sleep.
Okay. So lighter sleep doesn't mean less quality.
Exactly.
Oh, that's good.
I think the other thing is that we tend to quantify the quality of our sleep about the length of our sleep, which is, again, just saying the same thing probably, that actually our brain has this incredible ability to take us into deeper, more restorative sleep if we have less sleep time.
Okay.
So that's not to say that we should opt for less hours of sleep. We should, but it is to kind of give you a bit of to take the pressure off a little bit. That if you're not getting that full amount of sleep, you may still be getting quite restorative sleep.
Okay. You started talking to us about this when we were sort of preparing for this. You were talking a little bit about trusting your brain that it will get what it needs. Can you just tell us a little bit while you do that? How many hours a night do you get, Chris, at the moment?
At the moment, I'm probably going through a good phase.
Yeah.
And so I'm probably getting 6 hours sleep a night, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it varies. So sometimes I will go through actually a good phase where I'll get some good sleep.
Yeah.
And then I can go through a phase like I could go a week where I don't really know because I feel like I'm lying there tossing and turning and watching the clock kind of count down and another hour goes by, another hour goes by.
Yeah.
But then my wife will tell me but you were asleep. And I'll be like, no, I wasn't. I was awake.
Yeah.
And so, so I don't know if it's that light sleep thing or whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing too is I am a very light sleeper. And so, I've got to have a dark room. I hate any bit of light. I just got to be dark and no noise. And so if I go to bed first,
And have you got like 4 young people?
and I've got 4 teenagers,
Good luck with the no noise.
So if I go to bed first before Karen does, and she's a nurse, does shift work and that sort of thing, and she can go to sleep like that. And so I'm like, ugh. So if I go to bed before her and I'm asleep, and then she comes in and just the noise of her coming in or whatever disrupts me, that's it. I can then could be 2-3 hours before I'm back asleep again.
Right.
And sometimes in that case, then I've got to get up and watch some TV or have a cup of tea or something.
Yeah.
Do something different to get back into a flow of getting to sleep again.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So Leigh, just coming back, just talk to us about this clever brain of ours and that it manages on less. Explain that a little bit.
I mean, I think 2 things I want to say. One is kind of what Chris has touched on, is that when we're in light sleep, I mean, I just want to use the example of my husband, actually, if I can.
Have you got his permission?
No, but I don't know that he'll ever watch this.
He'll be fine. He's a good man. He'll be fine.
Okay, he'll be fine. All right.
He snores. And so like often he will fall asleep before me, and I will say, we have this rule that I'm allowed to say once or twice snoring, and I say it quite gently like that. Yeah. And he will always say, what do you mean I'm awake? And so he's been in that light phase of sleep.
Yeah, great example. Yeah.
And it's interesting because in that light phase of sleep, hearing is the last thing to be kind of switched off in our brain, for lack of a better word. And so we will get disrupted by noises. Yeah.
So there's actually working going on. There's the what you're saying, like growing, or that work, that
cell
rejuvenating
repair,
cell repair is actually happening.
Yes.
But we could actually perceive ourselves to be not quite in an asleep state. We might talk about dozing.
Absolutely.
But actually there's good work that happens in that dozing. So we don't want to discount that.
I think it's really important not to discount that, because Chris talked about anxiety, and often people can get quite anxious about sleep, and during the day their thoughts around sleep can be quite anxious thoughts about what's it going to be like when I go to bed tonight. Yeah. And so already there's an association between going to bed and not being able to sleep. Yeah. And we know that with anxiety we're activating our nervous system, which is the opposite to resting. And so it's really important to know that we want to be reducing anxiety, and it's important to know that our brain, we can't make ourselves sleep. It's a function of our autonomic nervous system to fall asleep. Mm. All that we can do is prepare ourselves for sleep and rest. And even if all we do is lay down and rest, there is still value in that. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what you pick up on there is that anxiety, because I've gone through seasons where I'm just not looking forward to going to bed. Like, you're almost afraid to go to bed at night because you're feeling like, what sort of a rest am I going to have? Or you've already written it off. I'm not going to get any sleep.
Yes.
So you get all worked up about it, which, as you say, is the complete opposite to where you want to be when you go to sleep. You want to be in that restful state. And so one of the things I guess I've learned over the years, and I don't always do it, but when I remember to do it is to try and get myself into that wind down kind of state, and putting some kind of things in place that tell my body and my brain that, no, we're getting ready for bed, whether that's lowering the lights or getting into your jammies or something, and just like that physical change of your body going, no, now we're getting ready for sleep.
It's kind of like a ritual or a routine or a kind of getting in the
doing
zone.
That. Exactly. And you find that, and that can help. But there are certainly plenty of times where, and I'll get anxious because I know I've got a busy week. I know I've got a busy day the next day. And so you're anxious thinking, I've got to get some sleep. I've got to get some sleep. And your brain's just going crazy. And then that's usually a write-off.
So we know we can't force ourselves to sleep, but we can sort of do something about the anxiousness that's turning up. So you talk about sort of rituals and things. What else do you, I mean, is it a sleep issue? Is it an anxiety issue? Is it is it a bit of both? Is it what do you kind of do with that when that anxiousness turns up for you?
Yeah, well, as I say, I don't always get it right, but when I remember to, I'll try and get myself into that phase of, right, I'm getting ready for bed, turn the lights down. I might, play some quieter music, that sort of thing. And, I love, worship music's great for that. I found some great instrumental worship as well, which can just be there in the background. And I find that helps.
Yeah.
But then again, for your spouse, so for my wife, she'll be like, turn that off, So you put some headphones on or something like that, but then you've got those on and they become a problem. But little things like that really disturb you when sleep is a problem. Having little things in your ears or whatever suddenly disturb you. Like I like an eye mask. I don't wear an eye mask, and my wife often tells me, wear an eye mask if the light's bothering you. But again, that's just for me, that's another inhibitor for sleep. It's another something that's but no, I find like the best days for me will be when I can come home and I can get in my jammies early, and it's almost like that switch.
Like early, like 5:30, or we're talking
6
7:30.
6
o'clock. Radio,
o'clock,
don't turn up at the Bethwaite's house.
This doesn't happen often. Okay, so this doesn't happen often.
Crochet is coming to mind again.
And you're suddenly in your jammies. So it's like that mental switch that you've switched off from work. You're now in relaxation mode, and I might be watching something on binge watching on TV or catching up on Formula One race that's happened, and you just kind of get into that zone, turning the lights down a bit, and then just heading off to bed at a reasonable hour, like 9:30, as opposed to delaying going to bed because you don't want to go to bed because you're scared that it's going to be a rough night.
Yeah, so it's like intentionally get into that rest state rather than into a work state. I know that for me, I don't sort of struggle heaps with sleep. Mike does, and so he's a very light sleeper like you, Chris, and so I'll sort of go off to sleep. But then if I wake up, then I find it a little bit harder to go back to sleep. But for me, I know that if I get my laptop out 7 p.m, 8 p.m, 9 p.m, and I'm trying to work, then I know I'll really struggle to go to sleep. So I really try and get my work done, and then I've had my dinner, and then I do not get back into work. And if I do, I just tend to find I pay for it. And my brain's just kind of, it's working, it's not winding down. So I try and do that. What about you, Leigh? What's your relationship with sleep? Do you struggle to sleep?
I've definitely had periods of struggling to sleep, and kind of learning about sleep has probably been one of the things that's been most helpful for me. Can I just touch on something that so rhythms, you mentioned the word rhythms, and I think rhythms is so important because the two systems that govern our sleep, one is the circadian process, and that is where we're exposed to light during the day. Yeah. And in the morning when the light comes out, our body creates cortisol, which wakes us up and gets us going. At night time when it's dark, it creates melatonin, which enables us to go to sleep. So the rhythm of light and dark is really important. The rhythm of meal times, because the circadian rhythm is also about meals. So keeping rhythms is really important. So that kind of routine of slowing down and keeping the rhythm is super important. You've mentioned light a couple of times, and I just think it's important to mention that we're exposed to so much light all the time. And if at night time we've got lots of overhead lights, it's actually working against the melatonin production. So we talk a lot about blue lights and computers, but it's actually not just that. It's actually all the lights that we're exposed to. So I think, like you mentioned, even just turning lights down in the house, turning down overhead lights in preparation for sleep, and that rhythm of doing that is really important to kind of keep that circadian process.
Kind of homeostasis.
Totally.
That's kind of when you talk about homeostasis,
Yes.
that's what you're kind of talking about. It's just having
Yes.
that sort of rhythm cycle that we're in.
Yes.
Yeah, that our body responds to.
And the other thing is sleep pressure, and you've also talked a bit about kind of regularity of going to sleep and waking up, that when we wake up in the morning, our brain starts basically counting how long we've been awake for, and then it's producing over the course of day a neurotransmitter called adenosine, which actually gets us ready for sleep. It gives us the urge to sleep. So if we nap during the day, we use up some of the adenosine. If we change the time that we wake up and the time that we go to sleep, we change that rhythm of the adenosine and the when we're ready to sleep.
Okay. So you're saying if somebody struggles with sleep,
Yes.
maybe the napping's not such a great idea.
If it's affecting nighttime sleep, it's not a great idea because that's what it does. It impacts on the adenosine, which is so important.
Yeah, and that's my
Are you a
experience.
napper?
No way.
Yeah,
If I nap during the day, then that writes me off for the night. Right. So if I just had a half an hour nap or even an hour nap, it's going to write me off for 3 or 4 hours into the evening.
Yeah.
And so that, and again, that's something that, so I'm conscious through the day not to nap. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen when I sometimes get home from work and sit down and turn the TV on and you doze off, but I won't intentionally go and have a nap during the day. And often I also find, like, if I'm unwell and your body wants to rest, I've got to be careful then as well, because if I have too much rest, I will pay for it later in the evening.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gosh, this is quite a science. We talk about sleep hygiene. What do we mean when we say sleep hygiene?
Yeah, it's a funny term, eh?
Yeah, I think about teeth hygiene.
Yes, yeah.
I think about teeth hygiene, but when we say sleep hygiene, what are we talking about?
Well, I think about habits. I think about those habits that we do both during the day and in preparation for sleep at night time and once we hop in bed that set us up for good sleep. So for me, it's about getting the right amount of exercise for ourselves, and that'll be different for you and me, but getting what works best for us, eating in a way that supports sleep at night time.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Certainly. So carbohydrates, high sugar, increasing your insulin at night time is not a good idea if you're wanting to actually calm your system. So
a nice sweet dessert after dinner is probably not good.
Greatest. And then and just on the food thing, so caffeine. I can't do caffeine after about 2 p.m.
Yeah,
I'm the same. Yeah.
You're the same?
So
that's tea, coffee, Coke. I just had a Coke before this. It's going to be a late night team.
Caffeine is interesting. Caffeine is a central nervous system stimulant, so it obviously stimulates. Yeah. The other thing it does is it blocks adenosine being received in the brain.
And we're trying to build up that adenosine. How do we call it? What do we call it?
Adenosine.
So we're trying to build that up so that we've then got it.
So it not just stimulates your system, which makes it hard to rest, but it stops you from feeling sleepy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So double whammy.
Okay, good. Good to know.
Yeah. No, I discovered pretty early on that caffeine from after about 2 in the afternoon is not a good thing. So I'm really grateful now that there's this caffeine zero sugar Coke that you can get now, which is great. So it means I can actually have a Coke in the evening with no caffeine in it. But also, often people have a cup of tea before they go to bed.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of especially black tea or green tea is very high in caffeine. And so it's great now that we've got a huge range of different teas you can get. And so there's some lovely teas that are non-caffeine, which actually can help your body relax too.
Right. And let's just talk about alcohol for a minute. What does that do to your sleep?
So alcohol,
not good.
Alcohol tends to make you feel sleepy and fall asleep, but you actually don't fall asleep. It's almost more like a sedative effect. So you don't actually go into a sleep cycle where you definitely don't get into REM sleep. So you don't have quality sleep and you tend to wake up a lot.
Okay.
So it really mucks up sleep.
Okay, good. So sleep hygiene, anything else on the sleep hygiene? So getting that
a couple of things, yes. Yeah, a couple of things. Obviously to sleep, your body temperature has to drop. So I think just thinking about your bedroom is really important. I'm not sure if that quite fits with sleep hygiene.
Are you saying I can't have my electric blanket on at night?
I'm saying if you have trouble with sleep, an electric blanket's probably not the thing.
I'm trying to wean myself off it at the moment.
I personally can't stand getting into a hot bed. I just love getting into a cold bed.
I like it for about 5 seconds. And then I go,
it's nice when it's a cold room.
Yeah.
But then, give it a few minutes and it's like, too hot.
Yeah.
So to sleep, we need darkness, we need our body temperature to drop. And I think, like you've said, Chris, that hygiene is about relaxing ourselves, calming our body and calming our mind, both those things. Yeah.
And I think that's also that, we've talked about the time of sleep too. And so getting into that habit of waking the same time every day or trying to go to bed the same time as well. Yeah. And I know for me, when I have my best seasons of sleep, it's because I will be intentionally, or I'm going through a season where I'm able to go to bed at a reasonable hour and I'm getting up at the same time every day. And so I find that actually works.
Yes.
Yes. And so, instead of waking up on one day at 6 a.m. and then the next day at 7 a.m. and then the weekend at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or, if you can keep a good rhythm of similarity in those times, I find that really helps.
Yes, definitely.
Which is kind of crazy because we think, great, Saturday, nothing on. I won't even set the alarm today. Just sleep until I wake up. But you can wake up feeling so groggy and terrible, because you will probably naturally wake at that time, 6:30, whatever it is, and then you go, no, it's the weekend, I'll go back to sleep. And then you wake up feeling even worse later. So obviously your body likes that routine and rhythm.
Absolutely. I think the other thing to note about that too is that if you press snooze on your alarm, you tend to wake up groggier after the snooze. And that is because that's the whole sleep cycle thing, that if your body's been acclimated, whatever, to waking at 6 a.m, say, and then on the weekend you snooze it till 7, you'll go back into a sleep cycle, but you'll tend to wake then out of a deep part of the sleep cycle. So you'll feel more groggy.
Okay, so it's just going to take longer to kind of get into the day. So the key there is, as much as possible, have a regular time at the beginning of the day that you're waking up and getting into the day. And so
I think
no sleep-in. Are we saying no sleep-in?
Well,
we're not. We're just saying, just recognise that might just be a groggier start.
Yeah, or it might be get up, go and get a cup of tea, bring a cup of tea back to bed, read in bed, relax, but maybe not try and sleep. Because is it truly that you can't actually recover sleep? Like people talk about, I need to get some extra sleep because I haven't had much this week, so I'll try and catch up on my sleep. But I've heard someone say, well, no, you can't actually catch up on sleep.
Nor can you bank sleep.
Wow.
I know before
I've sleep in advance.
No, you can't. Done. No, both those things are true. But like we said before, I mean, our brains are amazing and they will help us to have more rejuvenative sleep.
So the brain effectively works harder.
It works harder, exactly, and it will take us quicker into a deep phase of the sleep cycle. Yeah. Good. So I guess I say that just to take away the anxiety that I haven't had enough sleep. Yeah, I need to catch up because 1, you can't, and 2, your brain has an ability to give you what you need.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about rest. Can we just come back to that? What's the feeling on rest in terms of like Sabbath, in terms of that rhythms? I mean, you got some thoughts on that? I mean, I know like for us, we try and have one day of the week where we don't do kind of any work stuff. It's a rest day. So it's even a day where we try and even not do stuff around the house. We just try and make it about reading books and maybe it's like it's a little bit of a longer kind of time with God or maybe it's, but it's just to breathe easy. It's just to
nice.
People don't need anything from us today. We can just relax and we can get up late and we can go back to bed with our cup of tea and our books and do you guys have a Sabbath that you follow?
That's something I've been really working on this year a lot, is trying to really observe that Sabbath. And I think it is, we work from a place of rest, not rest from a place of work.
That's right.
And so getting that right. So I try and obviously on the weekends just try and get to that point where either like Saturday will be the full-on work day, doing all the chores around the house and trying to get everything done, and so Sunday can be a relaxed day, go to church, just chill, the family, friends, whatever, where you just got nothing.
As long as you're not
you have to
serving
do.
at church, Chris.
Well, yeah, I mean, that happens from time to time, and then
it
you switch it out and try and make it. But I try and make it so sometimes even then, it's just the afternoon and evening that'll be the Sabbath.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
so part day Sabbath.
Yeah, so you can have a part day Sabbath because you know, well, yeah, hey, you're doing something at church or you're volunteering in something that's going to require a little bit more of you. But I think it is important to have that time where your body's just and your mind is just doing things. So whether that's binge watching some Netflix or reading a book or getting out into the garden. I mean, I find even just mowing the lawns or doing yard work around the house can be so refreshing because you're thinking about other things, not your work things, not other pressures that might be going on. And that's all really helpful and healthy. I think when we just try and cram so much in and we say, okay, the weekend, right, I can catch up on work because I can dedicate some time. The phone won't be ringing, the emails won't be coming in as fast. But I think that's a trap to get into because our body actually does need to be thinking about other things and doing other things and also just hanging out with the family and things like that too. So I find that's better. If I've got that rhythm well, then I can find that my sleep will generally get a bit better.
Yeah. Leigh, what if you're waking up in the night remembering all of those things, those work things, like you've gone to sleep and then you what about that? Like any tips for that? Like I think maybe there's a lot of people out there that maybe just they get to sleep but then they're waking up and there's the to-do list. What do you do with that?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think first of all, nighttime is sleep time, and it's not the time to solve problems or do work. But if we have woken up with that, personally, I recommend getting up out of bed and actually having a pen and paper and writing those things down. Sometimes it's helpful to perhaps put a date or a time next to them of when you're going to deal with them. But it's kind of like acknowledging that, yeah, okay, those things are really important to me, but now's not the moment to deal with that. But I am going to create a time to deal with that.
Great. So it's not ignoring it. It's not saying it's not important. It's just it's taking it from in here in our head, and it's doing something with it. Getting it down on paper. We will come back to this at the correct time, at the appropriate time. This is sleep time, not the appropriate time. Chris, what do you do? Does that ever happen for you?
Totally. Because I guess as well as your brain and body wanting to sleep and rest and your brain knowing it needs it, your brain also likes to ruminate on things. And so if you've got an issue going on or a stressful situation or something or a meeting you might be facing the next day or some other issue, it might not be work, it might be a family thing, it might be an illness, a terminal thing, whatever it might be.
That's right.
And so your brain will then also ruminate on those things because it's trying to find a solution to help you in that situation. It's almost like that fight or flight kind of thing. So your brain's trying to think, right, what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this situation? How are we going to problem solve this? And so you can lie awake at night going, you're wanting to sleep, your eyes are closed and you're all kind of tense because you're trying to sleep. You're going, no, brain, sleep. But same as what Leigh says, I find like a pad by the side of the bed or something where I can actually just write down. And if I think of a solution or something, I'll write it down. Sometimes I'll draw a box around it to kind of say that's boxed in, deal with that in the morning. And it's okay, brain, we've dealt with that, we've put it aside, we'll pick up on it later. And so, sometimes those little things, again, are just helpful to do in that. And then other times I find sometimes you just can't beat it. So the best thing is to get up out of bed and go and just do something else, watch a bit of TV, read a book. Remove yourself from the bedroom that's causing the problem and anxiety and just go out and do something mind-numbing, almost like watching some TV or reading a book or something that's going to distract your brain. And eventually, and I find that if I'm really struggling to sleep, I'll often just get up, I'll just flick a TV series on that I'm watching, and I eventually will fall to sleep. Sometimes it's really quick, sometimes it might be an hour, but I'll eventually fall asleep, and then I'm like, okay, cool, and then I'll kind of go back to bed and I'll be fine.
That's good. I've recently moved my phone from beside my bed to out into the living area to charge at night, and what I would sort of historically do if I did wake up and was thinking about things, I would just text it to myself, so that then the next day I would just kind of have it there in my text, But now that I've got it out in the other room, it means I'm going to have to go out and do that. But I like the idea of just getting up a pen and paper beside the bed, and so that you're kind of doing something with it, so that you're not then worrying and being anxious about, am I going to forget this tomorrow? That's something you can do.
Can I just say, if you know you've got a lot happening in your life, like you mentioned, it's not just work stuff, there can be relational stuff, so much going on. Yeah. And we can be trying to sleep with lots of unresolved problems in life, many times. And I think it's really good when we know we've got a lot going on, because during the day we can, without even realising it, be not paying attention to all those things, but lie down and rest, and we're suddenly paying attention to it, or our brain wakes us in the night and we're paying attention. And so creating a time early evening to pay attention to what's important, to open up your pad at that time and write down those things, and kind of almost like a brain dump, just let yourself get it all out and do what I suggested before you even go to bed. And sometimes that practice can help you to not be doing that then at night time.
Yeah, great idea.
So kind of preempting, really.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we're sort of getting to the end of this podcast, I'm wondering if there's kind of, last things that are important for us to talk about. I'm just wondering that, like if somebody's listening and they're going like, hey, so what do I actually do? What are my next steps? So if you were going to give like 1 or 2 or 3 things that are really important for somebody that's listening that really wants to be intentional about resolving some of their sort of sleep challenges, what would you both say?
I would start with a couple of things. I would start with just saying you're not alone.
Right.
I think sleep issues can make you feel very alone. And I just want you to know, I guess, that when you're awake at nighttime, so are many other people.
Yeah.
And that thought can be quite helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe switching your thinking a little bit, not to say that this is not a problem, but in this moment, here I am, what's the most effective thing I can do? And maybe I've got this little gift of time that I wasn't expecting. And it's a simple twist of your thinking about it.
So sort of putting it into a positive frame than a negative frame, so we feel less distressed about it. And
that's
more
exactly,
like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, what might this little bit of time look like?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And then a couple of other things I would say is keep a diary. Actually keep a diary of how much you've slept, and then some of the other stuff that's happened during the day, like track caffeine, alcohol, diet, exercise, and start to see some of the rhythms and some of the connections. If you're continuing to have problems for sleep, I would say for 2 to 3 months, and it's really impacting, go and seek some help.
Okay, and what are options for that?
GP would be first port of call. Yeah. Just tell someone else in your life would possibly be another thing. Someone at church, just someone trusted in your life. Go and see your GP. There are people, psychologists, there's people in mental health, there's counsellors, there's sleep clinics.
People that specialise in
Absolutely.
sleep, yeah.
People that specialise in sleep. So there is help. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah, Chris, if you were going to give a couple of bits of advice.
Yeah, well, definitely the first thing that Leigh said. I mean, I'm really glad we're talking about this on this podcast, because I'm always surprised when I'm talking with someone who I think I know well, and then you find out that they too, like you, struggle with sleep. Yeah. And so you're suddenly thinking, oh, okay, I'm not alone. And I think that is something you feel like you're the only person. It's funny at times when my wife will be just like, oh, just wish you could go to sleep. And I'm kind of like, so do I. It's one of my deepest desires. If someone said, oh, what would you like to wish in the world? Well, world peace, yes, and that I could get a good night's sleep.
Because, you're in a beauty contest.
Yeah.
Right.
And that I could get a good night's sleep, because, I'm like, I'm not intentionally trying to be annoying to you, honey. I just can't sleep, and I struggle with it. And so, and so I wish I could sleep. And so talking about it with others is really helpful.
Okay.
And I think just being honest with that. I think it's, we see people in our walks in life. We see them up front on a Sunday. We see them, hear them on podcasts. We know about their professional worlds, and we think they've got it all together. And it's not until actually you start to get really honest and real and you discover that people struggle with the same things that we're struggling with, and sleep's one of them. I find that, for me, especially with the restless leg syndrome, obviously caffeine is a big no-no. And so working out when I need to cut that in my life. I'm not a big caffeine drinker anyway. I don't drink coffee. But I do like Coke, and so that obviously has caffeine in it. So that was a thing I had to learn very quickly.
So you just had to go.
I just had to work out that from about mid-afternoon is about when I have to know. And I know, and I don't always stick to that, but I know if I end up having a Coke later in the day, that I'll probably pay for it later.
Yeah, a bit like me tonight with the Coke that I just had at 4 o'clock.
And that I find stretching. So often because the restless leg thing, so stretching I find works. And doing some stretching. If I, in the winter it's a bit harder, but in the summertime I do like to try and get out and have a walk. And I find if I'm regularly doing that again, that will help with my sleep rhythms and all of that sort of thing, and with my restless leg syndrome issue that will crop up from time to time. Yeah, so getting some kind of exercise, and it doesn't have to be hard out cardio, it can just be a simple walk.
Yeah.
And those sorts of things. And then I guess I don't always take my own advice in this, but if I am tossing and turning, it's best just to get up and go and do something else for a little bit and then try and come back to bed again. But often you find yourself, you're just in that trap and you're like, I need to sleep, and come on, body, sleep. And so you want to stay there. You don't want to get up because that seems counterproductive. But actually sometimes just getting up, moving about for a few moments and minutes, 10, 20 minutes, and then coming back can be all you need.
Kind of a reset.
Bit of that reset. So, I mean, over the years, I've tried sleeping tablets, and they've worked to some degree. Some of them give you incredible hallucinations. Some of them you wake up in the morning feeling like, wow, that was a really weird dream. Oh my goodness. Right. Or you can wake up in the morning feeling really groggy, like, oh, that was supposed to be helpful. I mean, I slept, but I just feel so bad now. And then others actually, they do kind of work, but then they can become addictive. And so then I get into a silly cycle of I don't want to be addicted to these things, so I won't take it, even though maybe I need it, but because I need some sleep. But then I'll get all worried that I'm going to get addicted to it, so then I won't want to take it.
Yeah.
I've tried different supplements over the years.
Yeah.
Sometimes they actually react with restless leg syndrome or other things that might be going on in your body. So it's really important to check those sorts of things out. Just don't think, that says go to the chemist and say, it's a sleep supplement, I'll take that, that'll help with my sleep, because it may interfere with other things going on in your world or your body or medications. So those sorts of things are important to work through. But I've tried all sorts of different things through the years.
Yeah.
In that. But I find probably the best thing is, exercise, getting into a good rhythm of trying to go to bed at a similar time at night and getting up at a similar time is helpful stuff.
Yeah. Lee, you've got thoughts on meds? What say about that?
Probably similar to Chris. I think there's a place for them. And I think sometimes if you've had a period of time where you haven't slept, you just need to sleep. And so medication for a short time, definitely, but it's not the answer to a long-term sleep problem.
Yeah, better to look to the source. Are we getting enough sleep? What's our alcohol? What's our caffeine? What's our food? What's the
worry? What's the stress? Worry? Are there underlying stress factors?
What are we doing about the anxiousness that's turning up? All of those factors. And so the sleep diary idea is brilliant because it actually gets you to just slow down and actually look at what's my day like.
Yeah.
And is there external factors, contributing factors that are affecting my ability to be able to have a really good, nurturing sleep at night?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Can I just touch just on travel? Because obviously travel can be a big disruptor to sleep, and especially if you find yourself in a different bed, hotels, motels, staying at someone's house, and that can be a big disruptor too, especially if you're only away for one night or you're away, then home, then away again. And so finding some I guess, again, some rhythms that work for you in that. And again, I find if I'm traveling, like staying in a hotel, then I'll get to point where I'll turn all the lights down, maybe just have the bedside lamp on. Again, might be just watching something on Netflix just to kind of relax me, calm me down. The trap we can fall into when we travel, especially for work, is we can feel like, I'm away from the family, I can get more work done.
Yes.
But of course, as you were saying before, Liz, if you start doing work into the evening, then your brain just keeps going. It doesn't shut down. And so I've been in that trap where I've been away for work and thought, I can just do more work. It's great. But then I find that then I don't sleep at all. And so now I find, I've got to actually have that cut off at whatever it is, 6, 7 o'clock. And then from that on in my evening is to help me wind down and get ready for the day that I've got ahead the next day. And so that's an important thing, I think, is to try and find those rhythms as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, internationally with jet lag and all that kind of thing. People obviously struggle with that. And so I guess, again, it's finding what works for you. What I find works for me is as soon as I get on that plane, I put myself into the time zone of where I'm travelling to.
Yeah, great.
And so if it's daytime where I'm travelling,
change your watch.
I don't necessarily change my watch, but I kind of know because I've already worked out what the time is in that place I'm going. So if it's a daytime flight and I know I'm going to be landing somewhere in the evening, then I'm not going to sleep. Because even if I nap, I'm going to struggle when I get there. And so I will just stay, I'll work and do what I can, watch a few movies. Yeah, you'll doze off and have the odd little snooze, but I try and get myself into the frame of mind of where I'm going to.
Yeah.
And the same when you come home, and you often land here in the early hours of the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, I'll try and stay up as long as I can through the day. As usually you can do to around 6, 7 o'clock, and then you've got to go, your body at that point will just be, you've got to get some sleep because you haven't slept for 30 or 40 hours properly. But if I come home from the airport and I go to bed and then I wake at midday, it's just going to muck me up. And I find that my body gets back into a rhythm much quicker.
Okay,
but I guess
thinking about where am I going to, and that's the rhythm, that's the time zone I need to be in, not the one I've come from, the one I'm going to. Yeah, that's really great.
But whatever works for people.
Yeah. You got to, and I think that's the thing. Whatever works, it's like you've got to try some things. Yeah. You got to be intentional. You've got to go. Okay, this is this body of mine. I want it to sleep well, and so do some sleep diary. Figure it out. Work to try and get the answers you need. And if after a couple of months, 3 months, it's still a problem, then go and get some extra help, some support. Don't do the journey alone. I just want to finish on where God is in all of this. Have either of you got thoughts like with regards to that, Leigh? You're nodding.
Can I just share a verse?
Yeah, please do.
Oh my goodness, I found this verse that I love. It's from the Message. It says, it's Psalm 3 verse 5. It says, I stretch myself out, I sleep, then I'm up again, rested, tall and sturdy, fearless before the enemy mob coming at me from all sides.
Lovely.
It's beautiful.
And, we don't have enemy mobs perhaps over the hills coming at us, but we have work stresses and we have relationship difficulties and, whatever else, exams that we're preparing for, we have things on our mind and we have a fast pace of life and we have all sorts of other enemy mobs. Yeah. And I just love, for me, that's about trusting God.
Right.
Trusting God with our enemy mobs, trusting God with our worries and our concerns and our work dilemmas and our relationship dilemmas and our grief and our health and whatever it is.
Right.
Because to lie down and sleep in the midst of all of that, for me, it's really about trusting God with our lives. And, I think about how Jesus slept in a storm, Paul slept in prison, Daniel slept in a lion's den. And when I meditate and think about that, that helps me to settle as well.
Lovely. Yeah. What a great script. What was that verse again? Psalm
3 verse 5.
Okay, great. And that's the Message paraphrase. Yeah. Chris, anything you want to add?
I often lie awake at 2 o'clock in the morning. We're trying to work out where God is in this because, and you can have those kind of honest prayers at that time of the morning going, for goodness sake, Lord, why can't I sleep?
Yeah.
And I've had many of those late nights and those kinds of prayers and thoughts where you almost get a bit angry, a bit frustrated and kind of go, God, where are you in this? I need sleep. My body needs sleep. And so, you can find yourself wrestling with that at times, but I think I always just come back to the fact that, look, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made and that God knows, God does care, God does understand. And even in those times where it feels like, you can feel like a bit abandoned by God, why is my wife so peaceful and asleep next door here and I'm just like, I need to sleep, you know the day I've got tomorrow.
Yeah.
But, I still find God in that that actually, no, I do care and I do know the day you've got tomorrow and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, lovely. So you're able to come back to that place of trust.
Come back to that place of trust and just knowing that ultimately at the end of the day, God has got this.
Yeah.
And that. And I keep trying to make adjustments and tweaks to my life and my lifestyle to try and help with that sleep side of things. But but I know God's desire for me is to be able to rest. And I guess I do find rest. I don't want people to think out there that I'm this insomniac that that's walking around like a zombie, because I do find rest in other things. I find rest even when I'm awake, which we touched on before, which I think helps in those sorts of things. So.
Yeah, that's lovely. I love in Matthew 11:28-30, it says, "Are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." I wonder about stress and anxiousness, the pace of life that we do at. There's something about a rhythm of rest. There's something about resting more and working just kind of change. I just think that sometimes that gets a bit unbalanced in our lives. I know that sometimes when I'm more anxious, it's usually when I'm more busy and I've got more things in the air. Yes. So just sort of trying to find rest, whether that's a weekly Sabbath, whether that's a daily, the wind down, the end of the day, they're putting your pajamas on at whatever time it happens in the Bethwaite's house, and just kind of finding that sense of rest that's a rhythm. It's a daily rhythm, it's a weekly rhythm, but it's something that God teaches us to do, that's in our design, that's important, and I guess each of us is on our own journey to kind of find that rhythm, a rhythm that's just a really nice fit, but that God is with us. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. So that's the journey, right? Is just figuring that whole thing out. Yeah. Okay. So really appreciate both of your input today. It's just been a really great conversation, great wisdom, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. We've discussed so much, from sleep hygiene to cycles, and hopefully there's been some things along the way that we've talked about today that will be helpful for people, and there is help out there if it gets too difficult. So thank you for listening, and we'll call it a day.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. If this has raised something for you, 1737 is the number of a counselling number that you can text, that you can call if you need immediate support. You can also contact your local pastor if you need support. And then if you need some counselling at elimchristiancentre.org.nz. Love to support you on your journey. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.